Hello and welcome to a quick tutorial and overview video on our new official art packages. In this video, we will be looking at the regional map pack, its contents and basic functionality. As with all of our art packages, we have a standardized system by which we organize all of the included assets into their subsequent folders. We have backgrounds, brushes, decorations, effects, symbols, and tiles in this map package. Backgrounds include all of those base images that you would put down first and then build your map on top of. It also includes a sample map. Brushes include all of those images that will be used with our line, rectangle, or ellipse tool. Decorations will be the majority of what your creations will consist of. Decorations are those images that we will use to populate most of our creations, from borders to decorative filigree, to all of our ground textures. Remember that there are oftentimes several pages to each one of these folders. Effects are those images that we use to enhance other images. In this particular map package, it consists mostly of textured overlays. Symbols are those images that will be used to symbolically represent, in this case, points of interest, towns, and cities. Tiles are all of those images that are used with our tiling aspect of image creation. A brief rundown on the best way to use this art package would be to begin with the background. We have several choices for you to use. Dragging it directly into the image window, you can see that we've instantly created an area for which us to work. We want to make sure that we adjust our grid size. All of our art packages are set to be used at the scale of 100 by 100. This is certainly not necessary. You can use any size you wish. Moving into our Layers tab, I will adjust this image to make sure that it lines up properly. I'll then begin to create my map. Next, I'll be using the Coastland Tiles. I will drag my initial tile shape, setting my width and height, and all other tiles will follow suit. I will speed up this part of the tutorial, and once completed, we'll begin to add all of the other elements necessary for a complete map. Now that we have our coastline created with our tile set, we can now begin to create all of the internal structures and ground textures that we need to further enhance our map. Before that though, we will create a folder. Double-clicking the folder, we will rename it Coastline. And we will place all of our tiles into this folder. Now that we've placed them all in the folder, it is much easier for us to manipulate all of these tiles together. If so desired, we could click on the folder, go back to our Layers tab, change all of the colors of those tiles simultaneously. We're going to keep them at the default gray for right now, and switch over to our Painting tab. At this time, we will switch to our Decorations and begin to paint in some of the landscape. I will primarily be using the Stamp tool for this. We have a base texture, which I will grab and drop in, loading up my tool. I will start the base size to be the same as our background, 20 by 20. I can either create a new layer by clicking the new Paint Layer button, or I can just click anywhere on the map. Grabbing the layer, I can now drop it underneath my coastline. If I so wish, I can go back into my Layers tab. I can use my arrow keys to change its position. Some of this overhang we'll take care of later, so we're not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to switch back over to my painting layer, make sure I have my Stamp tool selected, and we can always rotate the image and place it anywhere we wish. Control Z will remove an image, but I want to line this up so that it fits into this quite well. Now that I have my base layer created, I will double click on the layer and I will rename it Ground Texture. Zooming in, I can now paint in some of this mountainous terrain. Changing the image orientation through rotation can oftentimes reduce the amount of repetition one sees in an image. I will grab some other mountainous imagery. Drop down its opacity. Change its rotation. And begin to paint it into my landscape. From here, I can change its size to further enhance what I've created. And I will also drop down its opacity a bit more. I will use some additional mountainous terrain to add variety to this area. Turning back on the aspect ratio. Making sure we have the stamp tool selected. And dropping down its opacity to somewhere around 150. I can begin to build these layers on top of each other and create some very natural looking terrain. I will go back to my painting layer. I'm going to double click it and make sure that we keep everything nice and organized, and I'll rename it Terrain. On top of my coastline, I'll make a new painted layer. I'm going to double click this and we'll name it Rivers and Lakes. Typing into the search, I can come up with all of the images that are associated with creating lakes. Dragging and dropping them will load them into my stamp tool. I can then adjust them to whatever size I wish and simply begin to paint these in like any other stamped image. Likewise, I can type in river and get all of the associated images, lining my river up with my coastline. I click and create a river. Going back into my terrain, making sure that I have the layer selection, and I'm in the layers tab. I can use my arrow keys to further change the position of my painted layers. I can also hold down Control and move them one pixel at a time. It's now time to finish up this image, and we'll be placing in a couple of other decorative images, as well as cleaning up the edge. I'm going to be making 2 more painted layers. I'm going to name this one Textures. And I'll be naming this one Frame. Going into my textured layer here, I'm going to go back to my painting tools, dropping my opacity to 100 to make my texture more subtle. I will then paint this over the entire image. I can also drag and drop, dropping it down underneath my frame layer. I'll grab my tool. I want to make sure that I have the rectangle tool selected for this. Go into our brushes, go into our frame brushes, grab whatever frame that I wish to use. I'll set its width to 1. I'll find a good place to start my frame, and I'll drag out, holding down the left mouse button until I get something that is of an appropriate size. If I need to adjust this after the fact, I can go back to my Layers tab, make sure the Layer Selection tool is highlighted, and I can adjust the width and height of the frame manually. And that concludes our brief overview and tutorial. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.